In the United Kingdom, there are about 10.5 million dogs. The dogs produce about 1,000 tonnes of waste per day. Dog waste is a natural product. Out in the wild, deer, foxes, badgers, they all poo in the wild. Worms will come to the surface of the ground and they eat the dead and rotting material of fallen leaves, and they also eat the animal waste. They take it down into the ground, and what the worms poo out is a natural product, which is worm castings. And worm castings is what is in our soil that gives all the nutrients to all the plants. Without worm castings, nothing would grow. Worms will eat dog waste. Using dog waste in a wormery, as long as you pick it up in a special bag that is biodegradable, we use ones that are made of starch, you can put it straight into the wormery. The worms will eat the starch-based bag, they'll eat the dog waste. You can put in green waste, kitchen waste and garden waste as well, and the worms will break it down into castings. If you pick up dog waste in a plastic bag, if you put it in the bin, it will just remain in a plastic bag in landfill for hundreds of years. By picking it up using these special starch-based bags and popping it in the wormery, the worms will eat it, they'll break it down, and you'll end up with a product that you can then use in your garden. How a wormery works is quite simple. It is a sealed unit. There is a tap at the bottom to drain off any liquid. Now, worms will produce a liquid. That liquid is a plant food that you can dilute with water, 10 parts water to 1 part of the liquid, and then you could use that as a plant food. Just above the tap there is a special metal grill to stop the worms going through to the liquid sump at the bottom. Over that there's a fine mesh, and over that you lay newspaper. On top of the newspaper there is a coir bedding, the safe bedding that the worms can live in. At the bottom of the wormery there is the porthole, as we call it. When the wormery is full you can open the porthole to extract the castings. The worms will live in here permanently, and because it is a permanently sealed unit, there are air vents on either side to allow the worms to have air and ventilation. Whenever you pick up dog waste, you just pick it up in the bag or with a shovel and just pop it straight into the wormery. As in nature, worms come to the surface of the ground to eat. They do exactly the same in the wormery. They're underneath the coir, but when there is food source in there, they will come to the surface, they will eat the food source and take it back down. It takes about a year to fill up an average wormery, and when it's up to about this sort of level, up to where the air vents are, you'll find that below, at the very bottom, is the castings. Worms, like most creatures, don't like to live in their own poo, so worms will come up to eat and down to poo. And as it fills up, you'll find that towards the top of the wormery will be all the dog waste, and then it will gradually be more and more broken down worm castings till right at the bottom after about a year. And that's when you'll just open the porthole, extract the castings with a small shovel, seal it back up again, let the contents settle. So you're constantly feeding from the top and emptying from the bottom. The worms we use are a special worm called Dendrobina worms. We use Dendrobinas because they are prolific eaters of a wide variety of food source, including faecal waste. They like to live in the top 2 to 10 centimetres, which makes them ideal for wormeries, and also they are native to the UK. There are over 100,000 different species of worm, of which about 2,700 are earthworms. The wormery is very simple to set up. The only thing you need to do is to attach the tap. We don't attach the tap in transit because they can get broken. You put in the wire mesh, and it comes with a complete kit. The bedding comes with it, which you just need to soak in water. It takes about a couple of hours to allow the coir to soak, and after that it takes between 5 and 10 minutes to set the wormery up. Once the coir is soaked, you just pop it into the wormery. We supply everything you could need to set your wormery up, including a worm voucher. So when your wormery is ready, you just send the voucher. We'll send you the worms, the sufficient quantity for whatever size wormery you have, and you just empty the worms directly into the wormery, leaving the lid open for a little while. Worms are light sensitive. That means they do not have eyes, but they have photoreceptors in the skin, which makes them sensitive to light. And this is a protective mechanism for worms, their main predator being birds, so they stay under the ground. So when your worms arrive, you just put them in the wormery, leave the lid open for a little while, and takes about 15 minutes for the worms to completely burrow down away from the light, and then just keep the lid shut at all times, especially during the night, because if the lid is open the worms will come up and can crawl up the side of the wormery and escape. So it's very quick and easy to set up, and once it's set up, leave the worms for a few days to settle in, and then you can gradually start adding your dog waste. The one thing to remember with a wormery, it is not a bin to throw all the waste in and hope that the worms will do their business. What the wormery does is the worms will actually eat waste. So what you need to consider when you're filling your wormery with dog waste is you're feeding worms, not just throwing everything into the bin. You can also include into your wormery green waste and kitchen waste. So if you have a leftover ham sandwich, throw it in, the worms will eat it. Leftover rice or pasta, potato peelings, etc. It's all good as it gives them a variety of diet. Managing the wormery is really quite simple. The only thing you have to be aware of is they are live worms in here. It is a good idea in the summer to keep it out of direct sunlight because it could get too warm inside. In the winter you don't want the worms to freeze, so just either wrap it round with an old quilt or some bubble wrap, or put it at the back of the garage or the shed, just so that it doesn't freeze inside. Worms are quite used to being in the ground and it gets very cold, so they will go down deeper to get away from freezing. And in the wormery they'll do exactly the same, they will go to the core of the wormery. So it's very simple to look after them. If you're going away for 3 months, very easy, just fill it up with some old leaves, some newspaper, the dog waste, etc., and just leave it again in the back of a shed or a garage or something, so it's away from the elements, and then you can just leave them to get on with it. And the manual that comes with the wormery will tell you everything you need to know about looking after worms and a wormery. A bin of this size, which is 120 litres, will suit 1 very large, 2 medium, or up to 3 small dogs. The next size up is a 240 litre for up to 2 large dogs, 3 medium, or up to 5 small dogs. Or for kennels, breeders, etc., we have a very large 1,000 litre bin, and that will cope with up to 15 dogs. One of the things with the wormery that most people are concerned about is that they will smell. One of the beauties of having a wormery, if managed well, which is allowing the worms to actually have the opportunity and the time to eat the faeces that goes in, you will find that it just doesn't smell. Also, if you use the special biodegradable compostable bags, that helps to keep the smell down. And the other thing, by using the bags, especially on nice sunny days like today, it also keeps the amount of flies down. So you will not find they smell, and they also don't have flies. The one thing that you do need to be careful with a wormery is when you dispose of the castings and the liquid. We advise that you don't put it where children would be playing, and you don't put it where you're growing food for human consumption. And that's because you can't guarantee that all the pathogens in the dog waste have been destroyed by the worms. It's absolutely great for things like your herbaceous borders or where you're planting out your perennials. So anywhere in the garden where you have your flowers and such is absolutely fine. It's just that you've got to be careful when dealing with it around vegetables. Once you have your wormery up and running, you shouldn't ever need to replace your worms. The worms will live in the wormery and they will continue to breed. One thing with worms is they breed to their environment. So though they will continue to breed in here, they will not overpopulate. Some councils are quite strict about where you're allowed to dispose of your dog waste. Most councils will allow dog waste to be broken down by the worms and being kept within the environment, the garden or the kennels or the commercial entity that have the dogs. There are no actual specific laws about maintaining a wormery at home. It's entirely up to you. Just be very careful about disposing of the worm castings.